Thank you everyone for joining us. This is our final Parts Manager webinar of the year, and very excited to be joined today by John Young, who will be guiding us through the roles of the parts department and goals for the upcoming year. Our presentation will be about 20-25 minutes, and as always, we'll leave some time at the end for questions. Please use the GoToWebinar widget there to enter your questions. You can do that at any time throughout the broadcast. Before we get started, I do want to introduce John Peterson. He's our Director of Fixed Operations for the Northeast region, and he has a couple of remarks before we get started. John?
Thanks, Brian. And I promise, folks, this will be less than 2 minutes. You know, as we move into the final 3 weeks of the year, first, a quick and sincere thank you from me and the entire after-sales team in the Northeast region. You look back, we started January really strong. Since then, every month has been a hard-fought month, no doubt about it. You've continued to persevere through this supply chain disruption. You were patient through the 12-volt battery challenge with ID4 customers that started in the spring and went through the summer. You were understanding of our back orders with oil drain plugs and some other parts that just seemed to be crazy and short supply. But the key is you hung in there and you worked with us through these challenges. In the end, 23 is going to be a winning year. There's no doubt about it. Here's one example. We need 606 tires a day to beat last year's record. Last year's record is on top of the record in 2021. So and then to further support that, 2 weeks ago, we needed 626 a day. So what happened with that flash sale mid-November and with the service consultant incentive finishing the end of November is we're able to drop that number. You were able to drop that number by 20 tires a day. So the bottom line is, after back-to-back record-breaking years in 21 and 22, we're going to do incredibly well in 23. You are doing incredibly well in 23 with tires, repair orders, parts, revenue, and it's going to go down well. Let's look real quick to 2024. We see there's continued growth, smaller, but there is continued growth. It's not pie-in-the-sky numbers. It's achievable. We have an action plan. We have a business plan. We have actions on how we're going to get there, and we're going to assist you with that. But before we do that, we're going to finish these last 3 weeks. And what I absolutely love is we're going to talk about today. And as Brian mentioned, it's the fourth in a series of educational workshops that he's hosted this year. And it's not about pushing programs, folks. It's about helping you. And so what he's trying to do is inform, discuss, and share strategies on how to effectively manage the business and then move to leading and how you lead your teams to new levels of success. Guys, I get it. There's times, there's even days where we juggle, we plate spin, we multitask. But we all know in the end that your role as the parts manager is to develop your leadership skills and then develop, coach, counsel, motivate, recognize, and celebrate with your team. So I love the content of this workshop. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Brian and John. Brian, over to you.
Great. Thank you, John. As John mentioned, this is a part of the series that we've had all year. This is the fourth one. The previous three, if you haven't seen it, you can take a look there on our YouTube channel and view the recordings there. This will be posted within a couple of days as well. We'll also be sending you the material that we're covering this afternoon. Please, again, go to the GoToWebinar widget and send us your questions as we are presenting the material to you. And before I introduce John, I just wanted to let you know what we're going to be talking about. As John Peterson said, we're really talking a lot about 2024 and setting goals. So when we're talking about sales management, people management, and inventory management, really what we're trying to present to you is how these things all work together to help the parts department achieve profit and their sales goals for 2024. So with that, I'd like to introduce John Young. He is our Senior Manager for Parts and Accessory Sales for Volkswagen of America. John brings with him not only a tremendous amount of experience at the corporate level, but also many years of hands-on experience and knowledge from working in and consulting for dealerships as well. So John has been a tremendous resource for me when it comes to parts and accessory sales, and I'm very happy to have him share his thoughts with our Northeast region dealers. John, are you there, please?
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for allowing this opportunity to be with everybody. This is going to go real fast, guys. So I'll apologize in advance if I stumble or stammer a little bit. The first thing I want to say to you is I'm probably going to set you up where you're going to have more questions at the end than you're going to have answers. I'm not here to say this is what you need to go do. This is what you need to go fix. This is how you need to operate your business. What I am here to do is talk about what some of your options are and what some of your best practices are. All right. We'll go ahead to the, okay, thank you, Brian. Sorry. When I look at the parts department, I look at the parts department in three specific areas or veins: sales management, people management, and the inventory management. And this illustration shows it being equal, but it's far from equal. All right. There's days you spend a whole lot more time on inventory management. There's times you spend more time with your people and the people management side, new people, training, etc. And there's times that you do more with the sales management side. Sales management side, I would probably say in a lot of the stores is one of the smaller pieces at different times because we have so much demand that's coming in through the sales, through the service departments. Go ahead to the next slide, Brian. So we're going to start off and we're going to talk about the sales management side of the business for a second. You know, if you look at effective, successful sales processes and sales organizations, they have a common denominator, all right? And that common denominator is they communicate expectations and they track performance, all right? So what I would say to you is there's an old expression, people don't plan to fail, people fail to plan. All right. I'm a big advocate of a plan. Got to have a plan. I get up in the morning, I got a plan for getting to work. I get to work, I got a plan for what I'm going to be doing in the morning. So I'm working the plan. My challenge to all of you is, what's your plan for 2024? We're going to be sending out, you'll get them early in January like you typically do, the 2024 purchase objectives. I would hope that the vast majority of you also have or will be having plans for your sales out objectives or your selling objectives. Those objectives may be in dollars. Those objectives may be as a percentage of improvement or percentage of increase. You may have objectives as a percentage of gross profit, percentage of net profit, etc. But what is important is when you have these goals is to, as we refer to it corporately, to cascade those goals down through and to your team, right? It's one thing you as the manager has the goal for 2024, but you have to work with your team to set their goals as well. We're going to talk a lot about that in the people management side of this as we move forward. Performance tracking, performance management, right? You go up front and you look in your sales department and you will see, I call it the prayer board. There's a big board in your sales manager's office, and most of the dealerships, they track everything. They track ups, they track beatbacks, they track phone calls. They track how many closes they have, average close. They track everything, right? We have to have performance management and performance tracking similarly. So I would encourage you to consider having a process to manage your staff, set the goals, and track their performance. Written job descriptions. We'll talk about written job descriptions as well in people management. People have to know what the expectations are, and it has to be clearly communicated, right? And then channel management. Channel management, go ahead to the next slide, Brian. Channel management is nothing more than your revenue stream. We think about channel management, and you'll hear me call it workshop, non-workshop a lot, all right? You'll hear service department or wholesale. I refer to it as workshop, non-workshop. Nationally, when you look at your retail parts business and that's the hard parts you sell, not no tires, no oil, just the hard parts that you sell. Nationally, it's about 60-40 in favor of the wholesale channel. Now, some dealerships are more in the wholesale business than others, right? But you have to have a plan of attack for each one of these opportunities, because capitalizing and maximizing your opportunities in the service department versus maximizing your opportunities in the NORA channel is two different games, two different sets of tools from your toolbox, different processes, different customers, different needs. In 2024, guys, we've had a great 2022, all right? We've had a really good 23 in vast majority of circumstances. Yes, there's been trials and tribulations. I think 24 is going to be a bit of a cat fight. So we need to make sure we've got a good plan, right? What's the plan for the workshop? What are we doing to conquest more customers as well as increase the volume of what we are selling to the customers that are coming in already? And then on the wholesale side, the non-workshop side, specifically the wholesale channel, some folks are focused on the collision business, some are more focused on the mechanical. Again, two different opportunities. Online business and e-commerce was big windfalls. COVID, post-COVID, slowed down a little bit in the last year. Still a lot of opportunity. And your retail boutiques, your retail counters where the customers come up to. Go ahead, Brian, the next slide, please. So I'm going to close off this conversation with sales management and leave you with this. Have a plan. What's your strategy? What's your plan? I would encourage you to break your plan down to a daily tracking, right? What do I need to do every day? What did we sell in the service department each day? What did we sell in the in the wholesale channel or the non-workshop channel each day? Have a plan, right? And track performance against that plan. Set your goals and objectives, right? Formalize job descriptions for every employee. Set the expectations of what you want them to do, how you want them to do it, and how are you going to track their performance, right? Performance should be on an individual basis. Everybody has individual goals, and the goals are not all the same. Meaning if you have 3 counter people and it's $90,000, they're not necessarily all going to have a goal of 30. The goals should be individualized, right? Consider tracking using the prayer board, big whiteboard, daily objectives, monitoring their performance against the objectives, all right? And inspect what you expect. I would encourage all of you, and I wouldn't ask for the parts manager to do it, but get your significant other, get somebody up in the office to cold call your team, right? I'd also throw out to you, if you ever get a chance, call Jasper Engine, all right? And listen to their selling process on the phone. You'd be impressed with what they do on the phone at Jasper. At least I have been, right? Competitive pricing in as much as family pricing. The scheduled maintenance items, I'd encourage everybody to consider family pricing on the scheduled maintenance. Make sure you're competitive, all right? You're going to have opportunities to hold margin on those items that are not highly visible. Where you can, do, right? But those items that are very visible, your customers are shopping, be aware of what the market is doing. And utilize your marketing and merchandising materials. The manufacturers, not just Volkswagen, all the manufacturers provide a lot of materials to the dealers. Unfortunately, and I know as a former parts manager, they typically sat in the corner of my office, and then when the new box came in, I kicked the old box out and replaced it with a new one, all right? Don't do as I do, do as I say. Use those marketing materials. to the best of their ability. Next slide, please. People management. People management is a challenge. It's a challenge at all levels, right? When we look at parts managers, it's an interesting question. Is a parts manager a manager? Is a parts manager a leader? Are they both? Are they more one or the other? Because leaders and managers are different people. Now, there is some common denominators, without a doubt. And ultimately, we want you to be both a good manager as well as a good leader, right? The good manager is going to hold people accountable to the plan and follow up to the plan, is process driven and has attention to detail, all right? Has the opportunity and the ability to communicate, sets those goals and objectives, right? A good leader is someone that people will follow, right? Active listening, they got empathy, they provide motivation, or they encourage motivation, willingness to stand up to superiors, willing to stand up for the others around them. But success is there in the center, all right? The combination of a good manager and a good leader, right? A good manager and a good leader is somebody who has those interpersonal skills. It's interesting, especially in an organization the size of Volkswagen, I see a lot of people in this building that I work in down here outside of DC, and you see some of the management team that they have people that follow them that don't even work on their team. It's not because they're a manager, it's because they're a leader, right? People are looking for leadership. People are looking for management as well. So you got to have strong interpersonal skills. You got to be able to communicate on their level, right? A good leader is somebody who realizes that they have to bend to the people that they're leading, right? I've got to adapt to my people. I've got to communicate in a way that they gravitate towards, right? I'm a big old horse, right? For me, hit me between the eyes with a board, I get the message. That's what it takes. For some people, that doesn't work. So everybody needs different communication. The technical knowledge, good technical skills, the good understanding of the parts department in all aspects of your business, and good sound decision making. This is a great combination between management and leadership skills, right? Next slide, please. So when we talk about your people, what I ask you to take away from this conversation is coaching is about getting your people to understand that simply getting the order is not necessarily selling, right? Parts departments are much more than a big vending machine. We build relationships with the technicians, we build relationships with the customers, your wholesale accounts, your sales teams, right? Make sure your people know what the expectation is. The old expression, if you got time to lean, you got time to clean. What are they doing in their downtime? Make sure you communicate to them and they understand what your expectations are. Make sure they know those bits and pieces. The job description is not all encompassing, all right? Well, that's not in my job description. I don't do that. Nay, I don't agree with that. The job description is a guide, right? We have to make sure good job descriptions, but we have to also continue beyond that. Incentivize good performance, right? Give them the opportunity to improve their own fate, to control their destiny. But keep in mind, motivation is a bit of a myth. Brian and I were talking the other day when we were going through these slides, and guys, Brian built all these slides, and quite candidly, I think they're really good, right? But we were talking, and conversation about motivation came up. And years ago, I was teaching a class as a consultant in my previous life, and I challenged folks, and I said, can you really motivate others? And I had this guy going, oh, hell yeah, I can motivate people. And I said, good. I've set a marker down in front of him. I said, motivate me to pick that up and hand it to you. He said, would you? And I went, nope. If I give you, nope. The reality is motivation is internal. So keep in mind that we need to remove the obstacles from them being successful. We need to give them all the tools and processes to be successful. But it's going to come down to where the rubber meets the road, where it's do it or don't do it, and that's all up to them. Make sure you hold them accountable. All right? Remove those roadblocks. We're just talking about that, right? Remove those roadblocks that keep them from being efficient, that consume large pieces of time. Effective communication. They talk about the majority of conflict between two people comes from failure in communication, right? Good communication is written as well as verbal. And typically good communication is both. We talk about it, and then there's a written component to it as well. Foster personal growth and development. Encourage them to do more, all right? Encourage them to read. Guys, we're all a student of the industry. There's a ton of information out there. The automotive industry is about 125 years old, and all of it is documented. And then we have these parallel industries. There is so much we can learn, all right? Challenge your people to learn every day. Next slide. Inventory. This is where everybody feels comfortable. This is where I feel comfortable, all right? We spend our lives, I'm going to be 60 real soon, and I've worked in this business since I was 17. I've made my bones on inventory management. Some of you guys have heard me at NADA. Some of you have heard me at the NASM meetings. This is where I cut my teeth. It's where a lot of parts managers make their bones, so to speak, right? But I want to challenge you here for a second. I want you to think about something that I call total demand posting, right? I wrote an article on this years ago. Do you capture all the demand that occurs in your parts department? And everybody right now is thinking, oh, here he goes. He's going to wind up his horse for lost sales. Yeah, I'm coming to that. But I wanted you to hold on to another one for a minute, all right? Those of you that are running perpetual inventory, I need you to think about how you post your corrections, all right? Make sure you don't have a hole in your demand cycle. Here's what I mean. Round air filter, square air filter. You give him the round, he needs a square. So you gave him the round, you're invoicing him for the round. He comes back and says, no, I need the square one. So you throw the round one over your shoulder, you grab a square one, you sling it to him, and you take, we used to take in-out sheets, all right? You take and make a note, +1, -1. Somebody goes in, manager, could be a senior counter person, and does a +1, -1 adjustment. That corrects the inventory, but it doesn't correct the demand. Doesn't correct the demand, right? I still see parts managers that are selling their obsolescence returns off of the computer onto a parts counter ticket. It's creating a demand on an item that they're returning to the manufacturer. Particularly right now with the auto part system, and everybody's either going to be going to auto part to stay on parts performance bonus, or Maybe not, all right? But really with Autopart, capturing all of this demand is critical, right? Now, lost sales. I'll ride that horse for a minute, but I'm not going to beat it to death, all right? We don't capture nearly all of the lost sales. I still go into dealerships and have guys thumping their chest and they're going, I got a 97% off-shelf fill rate. Cool, how many lost sales you post last month? None. I doubt you got a 97% fill rate, all right? So make sure you have a robust lost sale process and hold your people accountable to get them posted, all right? Total demand posting will help you increase your breadth without a doubt. We have SSA. SSA and parts breadth is a big component that we will carry forward in the future, all right? Having the right parts at the right time and the right value, the right quantity, all right? Leads to increase off-the-shelf fill rate, improves fixed right first time, improves CSI, right? So good inventory management practices, right? But it all starts with total demand posting. Next slide, please, Brian. Many of you are or will go to Autopart. Autopart is not a replacement for your DMS system. You must still have good source controls. Autopart at its most will control 45, maybe 50% of the part numbers you're selling. There is many part numbers that will not ever be controlled by Autopart. And Autopart only controls it once it meets the criteria of like 3 sales in a 9-month period of time. So you still have to maintain your source controls. Make sure you're maintaining your source controls. Make sure you're keeping the parts in the right source. Right? Couple things to consider. Traditional, phase in, phase out. Phase in at 3 and 12, phase out at 0 and 6. I would challenge folks to be looking at phase ins at 2 and 9. Right? And to be booting it out onto the street when it drops below 2 and 9 or 1 and 9. The life cycle of parts is getting shorter, but the life cycle of parts is increasing. So what I mean by that is you sell a part for a short period of time and then it goes dormant, and then it'll lay dormant for a period of time and that part will fire back up again, right? So you have to keep the parts in your system longer. Don't be flushing the parts out of the system. Keep them in your system longer, all right? And let them recycle and come back through, all right? Good inventory movement guides at the top left corner, all right? 65% of your inventory from a part number basis. This is part number basis, all right? 65% of your inventory will be less than 3 months of age, right? 15%, 4 to 6, 5%, 7 to 12, right? Ultimately, I'd like to get to where my over 12 is nothing, right? You get into obsolescence and you get into aged inventory and holding costs, and it just gets real hard to make money at that point. Turning inventory 5 to 8 times a year gross. True turns, when you factor in your level of service, 3 to 6 times annually. All right, next slide, please. Inventory is your bread and butter, guys. You know this, all right? I probably haven't shared anything with you that you haven't heard before, right? We need to keep the best practices moving inventory, moving forward with your inventory, perpetual inventories being done on a daily basis, posting of lost sales, all right? Monitoring your off-the-shelf fill rates, all right? Freeing up your idle inventory and your frozen capital, Make sure your people understand the processes, and make sure your people are held to those processes. The days of the good guy discounts and the good guy returns, you've got to get away from that. It's getting way too expensive. It costs you way too much money. All right. Keep your cores going back to the manufacturer. All right. Dollars on the floor without a doubt. And get the physical inventories done. I still get surprised every year by the number of dealers that are not running a physical inventory, at least on an annual basis. All right. If you're running a good perpetual process where you're counting X number of lines every day, and really, if you're counting 40 lines, 40 part numbers a day, and you're doing that every day, your physical inventory process gets much, much easier. All right. Last slide, Brian. You know, it's been a quick, very quick 30 minutes. I appreciate everybody's time. All right. John said at the beginning of it, thank you. It's been a great 2 years for us. Thank you for everything you do for me and my team. And we'll open it up for questions at this point.
Thanks very much, John. Yeah, if there's anything that you take away from what John presented, I would say on that last slide, written policies within the parts department. From my travels and visiting stores, I would say that the departments that are having issues the most with obsolescence, and in turn that obsolescence is hurting their sales by not having the right parts available. In almost every case, they do not have a written process for their special orders. They don't have a written process for their returns. And unfortunately, when that happens, it piles up, the obsolescence piles up and does hamper sales. So thanks, John, very much. The questions, please put them in the GoToWebinar chat function there. We will hang on and answer any questions that you may have about sales management, people management, or inventory management. John Peterson, before we go to Q&A, is there anything that you wanted to add?
Hey, thanks, Brian. You know, one thing I did think of, next gen. So folks, just a plug, there are literally millions of miles that are on the next gen platform for people have not signed in to even see if they've earned miles. So please take a look. It's a great platform. You can use it for the experiences, for the items or the gifts that are there, or you could simply take a gift card. So in the season where we're looking to recognize and celebrate and do stuff like that, that we've probably got some folks, you may have miles that you're unaware of, or there's people that are at your dealerships that are unaware. Please encourage them to log into the next gen platform, because again, it's a great repository of information as well as the miles that are out there for their use. So that's the one thought I had, Brian.
Great. I do not see any questions at this time, unless you guys see it on your end. I do not see any on my end. Oh, one just came through. Rick is asking, can I get some info on Autopart? So Autopart, while it is very relevant to what we've been discussing in terms of inventory management, I don't have anything specific here to show you this afternoon. Autopart, I must say, when it comes to Autopart or SSA with the old PPB program, or even just your inventory controls within your DMS, they're all aiming to do exactly the same thing, and that is to help increase the off-the-shelf fill rate. And to what John mentioned before, we're trying to make sure we're capturing your total demand. If your DMS is set up perfectly, then great, that will work. In many cases, the DMS is not set up. So we had SSA that was helping you support that and making sure you had the right parts at the right time for your customers. That was a big part of the PPB program for many years. That is being phased out, and we are moving into AutoPart, which will help you to manage your inventory. And it's all about the same. I know that I've had some concerns out there on AutoPart that it may increase your inventory value, and that is not the aim whatsoever. In some cases, we've actually heard where inventory values have decreased. If you think back to the slide which John showed you about increasing depth and breadth, it is about reducing the days supply for each individual part so that you have more available SKUs, more available part numbers. So Rick, I will reach out to you individually. If there is anything else that you need on AutoPart, I'll work with you and I'll put you in touch with some of the folks there by AutoPart there. Any other questions out there? We'll stick on for another minute or two. I don't see any right now.
Yep. And Brian, I guess, one plug for AutoPart is that we know the required terms of trade in 2024, probably sooner than later. And right now, if somebody enrolls by December 15th, has the signatures, not the startup fee, what the heck do we call it, Brian? The enrollment fee of $750 is being waived. So this, again, we have over communicated this thing for several months. And I guess the other part while we're on that is, we were with the Parts Council in August, or maybe it's late July, at the PDC, and all of the folks on the Region Parts Council from Volkswagen and Audi were very supportive of AutoPart, and some of them even mentioned that it saved them, several minutes a day in which to do it. So it's program. I opened this webinar by saying we're not here to share programs and stuff like that with you, but this is a very good, timely question. It is going to be required next year. We have a lot of people that are already enrolled. If you do have an interest, there is a time window here of December. If not, that's fine. You can wait till after the first of the year. It's just there's a $750 fee that'll be associated after that. So, and then Brian, I guess I'll throw one more shot, or actually the question out there. Folks, we've worked really hard with the Penske organization for at least 2 years, actually longer than that. It's probably 3 years now that they bought Black Horse Carriers out. And they've got a new team in place. They've got additional resources at the PDC in Cranberry. They've got dock managers that they have not had before. They've got quality control people that they haven't had before. And so from our perspective, things have gotten better. If they haven't in your end, certainly you need to let us know that. So just a very professional, constructive email as to what has happened. We'll work with Jeremy Gonzalez and Steve White and Mike Camp from the PDC and Joe DeVito, and those folks are here to help us. Mike and Joe and Steve and Jeremy and I talk on a regular basis. And so again, we know that parts deliveries are not perfect, but they're, from our perspective, they've dropped dramatically. But just keep the feedback coming so that we know, when you don't feel that you're getting the service you need. I do know that we had a bit of a service issue in the New Hampshire market, New Hampshire, and there's a change has been made. Candidly, I'll lay it out. They made a driver change, and so when we get enough, and when you're sharing with us what's going on, Penske will step up and do what's needed. But again, you got to talk to us, folks. So again, we're not here to tell you that everything is fantastic, but we do take seriously the concerns and issues you have, and we'll address them, as quickly as we can. So, yep, back to you, Brian.
Sure. Thanks, John. Just not a question, but I got a comment from Brendan Hefferman. He's the parts director at East Hills Volkswagen of Sayville. That's out on Long Island, New York. Brendan is on our Parts Council and has been involved with AutoPart for a bit. And he actually just sent me a comment and said that anyone who's reluctant to sign for AutoPart, please feel free to reach out to me. And I appreciate that, Brendan. I'm not going to display your contact information here, but anyone who wants contact information for their council member, email or phone, please just reach out to me or reach out to your FOM. We'll be happy to provide that for you. I don't see any other questions. Mr. Young, I don't know if you have any closing thoughts, but it looks like we're going to wrap things up.
Nope, all good, sir. Thank you. Thanks for the time.
Hey, Paul. Hey, real quick,
No.
I just thought of it.
Yeah.
Let's make sure everybody pays attention to year-end dates, right? That always comes up. I know there's been several communications out there on it, but my gosh, please do not wait until, what would it be, the last Friday? What would that be, the 29th? I'm guessing, I don't know what the dates are, but I beg of you, do not wait until the 29th at 1 p.m. to throw in an order for Thule or for stuff that is not, not at our PDC. So please plan ahead with DIA, plan ahead with your parts ordering process, and let's not get down to the end. I will tell you that if it comes in late or after, or we are out of that component, we are not able to make adjustments. So this is, I know I want to leave this on a high note, and we will. I thought John and Brian did a phenomenal job. This is great, but just ask you to be very mindful of year-end dates and cutoffs. So, okay, Brian.
Yeah, John, yeah, it's very timely. Yes, December 29th is the last invoicing day of the year. However, a couple of things to note, as John mentioned, drop shipped items, tires, oil, batteries, and some of our accessories, they do take longer times to ship and invoice, and so you'll want to make sure to pay attention to the notice that was posted in Parts on Command News. It gives you a timetable of when you can place those orders and still have them count for Q4 and for the year. So please pay attention. And also, one other thing that you may want to note in planning for your PPB is that while the final invoicing day is the 29th, there is that weekend following, there will be a final audit trail, and returns can and will be processed right up until the 31st. So you'll want to take that into consideration, any pending returns as well.
That's a great point, Brian.
Yep.
Yeah, great point.
Thanks.
Yep.
Thanks.
And
Joseph just asked, what about my buyback pickup date? What if my buyback pickup date is the 27th? If we're talking about the 27th of December, then no, that will not get processed. That generally, I would say that the PDC needs at least a week to sort through and process and credit your return. If you want to be 100% certain, Joseph, or anybody else, that in the last week of the month, if you're wondering if your buyback's going to be processed, I would just simply send a note to Joe DeVito there at Cranberry, or Danielle at Knoxville, or Keith at Wisconsin, and ask them just where your buyback is in line. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, no, Brian, and you brought up a great point about, hey, listen, we finish on an audit trail, so the 29th will be our last official day, and that will not be a full day. And then we have the audit trail on Saturday, the 30th. Folks, then month-end close. Month-end, year-end close will be actually, January 2nd. So, please get in contact with your sales manager. Let's get an idea of what they're thinking of for number of sales for the end of the month, the end of the quarter, the end of the year. The PNVR on that, and know where you are in the bonus thresholds or the bonus margin in the tables and where all that fits. And I tell you, do not try to stick the landing. That's just that's a risky game. So just encourage you that make sure you've got well in advance everything that you need with regard to parts and tires and specifically accessories. And you're looking at your bonus programs, knowing that it'll be a full 3+ days later before we actually end the new vehicle sales. And that's just an industry situation that is not unique to Volkswagen, but it always happens, end of year. And in this case, we just happen to finish our business on a Friday, but they don't until the Tuesday. So, but to be mindful of. So it's all good.
Great. Thanks, John. I'm going to wrap things up now. Thank you all for sticking with us through the Q&A. We hope this was informative and helpful. We wish you all the best in closing up and wrapping up 2023, and lots of success in the new year. We hope that you all have a great, healthy, and a happy holiday season. Thank you for joining us, and we will talk to you soon.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks, John. Great job, guys. See ya.